Two iconic photos, two popular creators, and a synth that looks like an accountant's wet dream may have caused the biggest buzz around a piece of music-making equipment in years. Was this marketing genius, a bit of blind luck, or perfect market timing? And how did these two photos, surrounded by one of the biggest controversies in the history of boxing, play a part? Let's unpack the marketing genius and hype around the EP-133 KO2.
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time when I beat Sonny Liston. I'm the greatest.
Some, well, probably a lot, would say that teenage engineering is avant-garde. Seeking to breach boundaries with their instruments, they are not afraid to try things that other synth companies would absolutely recoil from. Would Korg, Yamaha, or Roland release a $250 toy car? Or whatever these things are? Probably not. But then again, the big three never released this. Teenage Engineering released their first product, the OP-1, in 2011, and it immediately split the synth community. Some heralded it as a success for its unconventional design, 11 synth engines, the inclusion of an FM radio, and the quirky but fun workflow. Others scoffed at the cheap build quality and the fact that it looked like a calculator or child's toy. Since that time, however, through a series of other unconventional product releases, the company has built up a cult-like following, kind of like some of the greatest B-movies of the 70s and 80s. These movies didn't have huge audiences at first, but they gained momentum over time until their popularity matched or even exceeded their blockbuster brethren. Recently, though, the company has struggled due to a series of, well, strange choices. The overpriced OP-1 Field was likely the start. Then came a series of other overpriced products and non-musical merchandise, cementing in many people's minds a belief that teenage engineering was trying to outdo Apple in the high-end product department. Or maybe they had just gone off the deep end. This had the effect of further splitting the synth community. If money was no issue, then you could pick up a mixer the size of a business card. But for most, the unique and cutting-edge designs of teenage engineering products were far out of reach. To say that a large part of the music-making community instantly fell in love with the KO2 is an understatement. Anderton's Music Company, a popular music store in the UK, was one of 3 YouTube podcasters provided access to the machine on day 1 of the release. Their video racked up over 100,000 views in a few days. True Cuckoo, whose channel has around 1/5 the subscribers of Anderton's, did even better, raking in over 450,000 views in about 4 days' time. Here was this new sampler in the midst of a sort of sampler renaissance being released by a small luxury goods company, and it was only $299. It appeared to be a Ferrari at Ford F-150 prices, a Camaro at the cost of a Chevette. It was cool, it was affordable, and it was fire. Somewhere around the 24-hour mark, the KO2 sold out. Reverb sold out. Musician's Friend, pre-order only. Anderton's, more stock in mid-January. B&H, more stock in mid-December. Every single site on the internet garners the same results. Gone, gone, gone. The afternoon of release day, I waited about an hour after watching Anderton's video, soaking up every bit of information I could on it to figure out if this would be the first hardware sampler I would own. And I pushed the buy button. For the record, I don't make rash purchases, hardly ever. My purchase was around 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Several hours later, the sold-out sign started to appear. The hype was real. So how did teenage engineering manufacture such a successful hype train, while other companies have utterly failed in their recent product launches? Well, it was probably a bit of luck, but it was brought about by some old-school marketing tactics. Marketing can create hype, but in the end, product matters because without a good product, you won't have buyers, at least not for long. Even the ShamWow guy can only do so much. The KO2 design is brilliant on a number of levels. It borrows from a number of other popular products which make it look familiar, yet new and exciting. The obvious design element, and the one that teenage engineering uses repeatedly, is the pocket calculator. Another is the hugely popular Nintendo NES system that came out in 1985. Almost everyone had a calculator growing up, and Nintendo sold over 60 million NES units in the late 1980s.
Never has there been a toy that's been this successful.
But even if you've never owned an original Nintendo, chances are you or your parents might have had one of these. See any similarities here? Essentially, nostalgia has a lot to do with why people think this thing looks great. Think of it like a lot of little Easter eggs, reformatted into one new package where the sum is greater than the parts. The price of the KO2 is definitely marketing perfection for several reasons. There already is speculation that Teenage Engineering has been planning this all along. I mean, it's a worthy strategy, employed by pretty much any retail store chain in the world. Release a string of expensive items out of reach of the average consumer. Then, out of nowhere, release something worthwhile that is priced just right. Bam, instant marketing hype. The term is decoy pricing, and it works. A study on consumer behavior regarding product pricing shows that if a product is not selling well, placing a similar higher priced product next to it will make the lower priced product sell. People also tend to pick the product in the middle. Have 3 t-shirts for sale, and the one in the middle will likely sell out the fastest. If we look at a fair slice of the current sampler and drum machine market, the KO2 is priced near the bottom end of the middle, but it also has a few features only available in higher end units, like punch-in effects and actual sampling via an internal microphone, which make it seem like a deal. $299 is also not a good price point. It's a great price point. This puts the KO2 in the realm of a solid Christmas gift, or something that you can splurge on without feeling too guilty. I've been looking at groove boxes for over 3 years trying to decide if I should pick one up, going back and forth between the MC707, TR8S, and the Deluge, but really balking at the price. If I bought one, I wasn't entirely sure I would use it that often, since I'm so used to DAW workflow and capabilities. And $1,000 is a lot of money to spend. $299 is much easier to swallow, and I can always use it as a live performance looper. I bought the KO2 after only an hour of research. Very unusual for me. So, is it priced right? Pretty much yeah.
I told you all!
Instead of releasing this product to dozens of creators, they gave it to just one. Cuckoo, an endlessly happy and eternally hip guy that could give the dude a run for his money.
That or his dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino.
His video was great. From the retailer side, Andertons joined the fray, and their video was even better. Jack's excitement and takes, coupled with Matt's sick beat, instantly sold this thing as a real instrument that both sounded great and looked like a ton of fun. B&H Photo also did a camera-inspired video a few hours later, followed by a handful of first impression videos from other creators that were basically takes on the Cuckoo's or Anderton's videos. The video counts quickly racked up. Teenage Engineering had essentially created a bottleneck in the content world. This thing looked really cool and fun at a good price, and there was almost no content to watch. Anderton's video quickly passed the 100K mark and outpaced every other video on their synth channel, even ones that had been out for years. B&H's channel is larger in terms of subscribers compared to Anderton's, but has a smaller footprint in terms of watch time. Still, their KO2 video garnered 43,000 views in just 3 days. Normally their videos take months to get that many views, if they even hit that number. Was this genius? Well, let's look at how successful movies are marketed. Have you ever seen a movie trailer and then gone to the movies only to find out that literally all the good parts were already shown in the trailer? Yeah, it kind of sucks, doesn't it? How about the opposite, where a trailer looks cool, but it left you guessing at the plot and premise of the film? You probably wanted to go to the second movie just as much as the first, but left more satisfied because you weren't told the entire journey ahead of time. This is suspense in a nutshell, and it not only heightens curiosity, but sparks learning and releases dopamine to the brain. This trick was employed by Game of Thrones author George Martin countless times, and the payoff each time was tremendous, making the show a consistent blockbuster hit for HBO, except maybe for the last 2 seasons. Suspense is one of the things that made the series so successful because you had no idea if your favorite character would live or die, and I bet that Teenage Engineering was counting on that here.
I told you today.
There are a number of iconic brands that spend millions of dollars in research just to get the packaging right for their product. Absolute Vodka is a great example. So is Adidas, or the master of all marketing, Apple. Teenage Engineering has taken cues from these much larger companies, and the packaging for the KO2 might be the most brilliant piece of the whole marketing scheme. It could also be the Achilles heel, as we'll see in a minute. First, let's look at the branding of the box cover and website layout, which is a mix of both old and new, and kind of mimics the instrument itself. The branding and the sampler are also targeted to appeal to as many subgroups as possible. Ali is a nod to hip-hop artists. The Japanese katakana is a nod toward anime and game creators, while the instrument design is a nod to hipster and Teenage Engineering die-hard fans, who I would imagine are just as loyal as their hipster Apple-loving brethren. It also appeals to bankers, accountants, engineers, scientists, computer programmers, and old pre-hipster guys who grew up with TI and HP calculators and Commodore 64s and Apple IIs like I did. The packaging is also in part a throwback to CD, album, and video game covers of the past. It even says 10-inch EP format on their website, because cover art not only matters, it also drives sales and makes things collectible. Just look at Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, or Duran Duran's Real. I myself thought of purchasing an additional KO2 just to leave the packaging intact to see if it would gain value over the next 10 years. Perhaps the most interesting design choice, however, was the two iconic photos that grace the front and back of the special edition packaging, because the history behind these photos is fascinating. Both shots were taken by a famous Sports Illustrated and Time magazine photographer, Neil Leifer, at the beginning and height of Muhammad Ali's career. The photo on the front of the box was from the round 1 knockout of Sonny Liston during their May 25th fight in 1965. Ali defeated Liston a year earlier in a 7-round match, but it only took 1 minute and 44 seconds to defeat him a second time. The photo on the back was taken a year later in 1966, when Ali knocked out Cleveland Williams in the 3rd round. You could teach a class on composition with just these two photos. The symmetry of the ring, the location of the boxers in each corner, the crowd looking in, the color and contrast between the fighters and the press, white versus black trunks, the right angle of Ali's arm and the power pose, the blue smoke in the background. They are absolutely iconic. If Teenage Engineering wanted to portray excellence, you can't get much better than this. These are perhaps two of the best photographs from one of the best photographers in the world. The parallels between the photographer and what Teenage Engineering is hoping to achieve are also very notable. Leifer's photos were iconic in part because he was willing to take risks. For the Ali Liston fight, he was one of only 2 photographers who had color film in their cameras at the time. For the Ali Williams fight, he placed a camera 80 feet up in the rafters of the Houston Astrodome to get the shot using a normal lens instead of a fisheye, so that the symmetry of the photo would not be sacrificed. The very next fight, a number of other photographers were vying for the same exact location. If Teenage Engineering wants to be seen as an iconic company that takes risks and produces great products, then there are perhaps no better photos to use. The cover photo is also a great metaphor. Teenage is hoping that this product will be even more popular than the original OP-1, where they surprised the industry and created a hit. The KO2 is being marketed as a sampler to kill all other samplers. That's pretty obvious. They want to do what the Commodore 64 did in the 1980s, when it crushed the likes of IBM and Tandy to become the highest-selling single computer model of all time. What is perhaps the most interesting thing with both photographs, though, is the controversy behind the fights. At their second meeting, Ali knocked Liston down in the 1st round. Liston went down with a short, fast jab that was not seen by a large part of the audience. Even on film, the punch doesn't look like it has a lot of power. It became known as the Phantom Punch, and many believed that Liston had taken a dive. This was not out of the question, as the mob was heavily involved in boxing at the time, and there were allegations of a fix at the first Ali-Liston fight. Ali is even reported to have said, "Get up and fight, sucker. Nobody will believe this." This is the moment captured by Leifer in the cover photo. There was also controversy due to the required 8 count from the referee and timekeeper. Since Ali did not go immediately to his corner and stood threateningly over his opponent, the count could have been stopped by the ref and then resumed. No one knew where the count was, and the referee restarted the fight only to have it be stopped by the timekeeper moments later with Ali the apparent victor. So while the photo depicts a decisive knockout victory, the real story is much murkier, and the truth will probably never be known. The entire saga is fascinating and involves the Nation of Islam, which Ali had just become a member of, potential death threats to both fighters, and an FBI investigation. That fight ended Sonny Liston's career as a heavyweight, and he later died in 1970 under mysterious circumstances with further rumors of mob involvement. A number of people recognize Liston's shot as the greatest boxing photo of all time, but it also comes with a lot of baggage. Power and controversy melded into one iconic image. While I doubt that Teenage Engineering really thought that hard and deep into the history of the photo when they chose it, it definitely does beg the question, will we see controversy with the KO2? Already there are lovers and haters of the product, which is not unusual because, well, fanboys. There's also Fadergate, which could be a thing, but the jury's still out on that because, well, fanboys. Fast forward a year later to Ali's fight with Cleveland Williams. This did not have the drama of the Liston fight, but it's definitely a textbook example of one fighter dominating another, which also led to some controversy. If you watch the entire fight, it's clear that Ali has the upper hand each round. The question is, was Williams really up to fighting Ali? 2 years earlier, Williams was shot in the stomach by a highway patrolman for supposedly resisting arrest. The bullet resulted in a loss of his right kidney, colon damage, partial paralysis of some hip muscles, a weakened right hip, and 7 months of recovery. How is someone with that kind of damage supposed to fight the greatest fighter in the world? In fact, the odds for the fight were in favor of Ali at 5-1. The choice of the two photos and the knockout monkeyer is likely some shade being thrown at other groove box manufacturers. Bo Beats even alludes to this in his video review. I'm going to agree with Bo even before taking possession of my own KO2. I knew going into the purchase that there would be trade-offs that I probably wouldn't like, but at the end of the day, this is a $300 instrument, not a $1,300 instrument. And while Korg seems to have made missteps with their latest groovebox launch, other companies have not. The Deluge is an absolutely fantastic instrument that gets regular improvements, and it's one that I would love to own. Both the TR-6S and TR-8S are also excellent pieces of kit, although they are mainly drum machines and not full-fledged samplers. And there are tons of happy 404 and Akai MPC owners out there. So if you want my advice, I would say ignore the hype, because that's what it is. And if you think you'll like the KO2, go ahead and buy it. If you think you'll like a Machine or Deluge, go ahead and buy one of those. And at the end of the day, Teenage Engineering really did do an impressive job on the marketing campaign with this instrument. And it looks like the KO2 will be a big hit. So hats off to them. If you want to learn more about Neil Leifer and the photos used for the KO2, I've included a few links in the description with some interesting bits of history. I'm hoping my Knockout 2 arrives this week, and I'm sure I'll be posting additional content with it in the near future. So hit that like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the other side of the mountain.
I told you today